Hi, I'm Nathan. I love to optimize health, mindset, dopamine stimulation, and utilize business systems to grow businesses fast. G'day guys, we are back with another awesome episode of how we can just boost our business in every way, shape or form possible, whether it's mindset, whether it's diet, nutrition, whether it's marketing. And I've got a really unusual bloke who I really like with us today, who I've known for a little bit of time. His name's Jason Kneebone, and he is the freaking energy bunny of the planet. Like when I first met him, it was like, Jesus, what's going on with this guy? So Jace, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hello, Nathan. How are you?
Good. And
hello, everybody out there in podcast world.
That is the most measured response or language I've ever heard out of your mouth. Okay. So, that's awesome. So, Jace, why don't we tell the viewers how we met and a little bit about you?
Yeah. Well, I think it'd probably be almost 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
At the Floriat Grind, we're early morning ocean boys.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know how we actually got introduced to each other. Maybe we just two bald guys.
We use the same barber, but but the funny, actually, mate, I remember the funniest thing. It was absolutely peeing down with rain. It was in the middle of winter. I'm walking out onto the beach, and this guy comes up behind me, and there's literally buckets and concrete and all sorts of stuff falling out of the sky. And this guy walks up behind me and says, because I'm obviously walking over to jump into the ocean, freezing cold. And this guy walks up behind me and goes, "If you're freaking doing it, I'm freaking doing it." And that was the first connection I had with you, mate. So
yeah, well, cool. I'm glad you remember that, because it's one of those things. Like, it's so rewarding, those early morning swims. But I mean, even today, you go down there, it's overcast. There's waves breaking. There's sand getting sucked up. It's to have someone with you. It's good sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So what's your background, buddy? Because you've got phenomenal, like, your energy, mate. I've never seen anyone with your energy. And I love that sort of thing, because obviously you want to hang out with people that have that you're attracted to in that energetic way, like that you can sort of bounce off each other. But what's your background? How have you channeled this in the past?
Well, look, thank you for giving me a platform to talk about myself. One of my favorite topics. I was born in Northeast Victoria. My father was a farmer. My mum was a nurse. I've got three other brothers. We grew up outdoors in the bush, doing our thing, going to school. And over my life, I've done a whole range of various jobs. But I've sort of fallen into a role now where I do a lot of boxing coaching, and through that I do various things with it, from kids at risk programs through to adults, single, through to classes, through to competition boxers, and through that process, you sort of becoming bodily aware, through the exercise, through the qigong, through the martial arts sort of stuff. And I found that once you become aware of your energy, your ups and downs in how they roll, as they do through the day, through the week, through the month, through the year, through your life, as I became more aware of those sort of patterns or tides, if you want to call them, we're going to want to use an ocean metaphor, I realized that I was being dragged around by these external forces, things like whether I exercise properly, whether I spend time with good people, whether I'm outside in the sun, whether I'm, spending time in the bush in some green rather than concrete. And, it's been a bit of a journey through that process, like keeping on top of it. But, I'm pretty happy with it now. I've sort of reached a point where I know what I need to do to be a good person around the people that I have connections with. And I like to share some of that when I can. That's where I'm at right now, sharing that if I can.
So share more of that with us. So what does your day entail to maximize your energy and just to feel awesome?
Well, that's interesting. There was a stage in my life when I realized that on a Saturday or Sunday morning, when I didn't have anything to do, I would have that lazy morning, and I would notice that patterns of thought would kick off in my head, and they would drive how I felt physically and emotionally. And then if I wasn't aware of that process, I could find myself down the path of negative ways of thinking and feeling. So when I became aware of that process, I sort of looked at ways of counteracting that, getting on a good foot, starting off in a nice positive vein, And for me, one of the really important aspects of that is gratitude. So when I do wake up in the morning and discombobulate myself from the dream I've just had, I do have crazy dreams. I actually like my crazy dreams. I'm not sure the people I work with do, but take that moment when I wake up to sort of just assess how I feel physically, how I feel mentally. Do I have a resonance from the dreaming or the sleeping experience that I've just had? And just observing that. And then when I get a handle on that, slowly going through the things that I am very grateful for. So, like being in Perth, knowing people like you, being able to go to the beach in the morning, my wife beside me, the friends I have, the safety in this city, the possibilities we have. And if you look at those sort of things, it's pretty hard to sort of feel down about stuff. But I find for me, that's the beginning.
Beautiful.
Gratitude. Yeah.
That's so powerful, Jace, because that I've seen studies where they use gratitude and just for overcoming cortisol and stress, like stress responses. And it's almost impossible to be stressed if you've got massive gratitude.
Okay.
Yeah. So that totally resonates. And actually what we do in the mornings, jumping into that cold ocean too, you're talking about positioning yourself for the day. That is phenomenal. That dopamine hit that we're getting out of that is just insane.
And it's clean dopamine.
Yes.
Yeah. It's guilt-free.
Yes. Yeah. And it's addictive too, right? Like, how crap do you feel if you don't get to the beach on that day and get that start? So that's the start of your day. What else? What comes next after the gratitude session?
Okay. Well, look, for me, if I'm not particularly hungry, or if don't need to go and do something like really physically straining, which I do some days, I generally don't eat in the mornings, and I just have lightly salted pints of water. So I probably have one as soon as I get up and brush my teeth. I'll do a few little manual things around the house, like clean the kitchen up, move some dishes around, just some sort of manual, cathartic, therapeutic work around the house. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. Right. And by the time I'm out the door, I've had another pint. So I've had 1,100 mils of slightly salted, just plain water.
What are you doing the salt for, mate?
Just for
electrolytes.
Electrolytes, but also I think the recommended salt intake is probably way lower than what it should be. So that salt water keeps water in the body. So you keep hydrated rather than drinking, very, very clean water with no electrolytes. When you're not eating that breakfast in the morning, I mean, as you're aware, your body spends a lot of energy and resources digesting food.
100%.
So, and like everyone knows the feeling of being full. Okay. And being too full, everyone knows that sluggish feeling after a meal, and even that big crash, So avoiding those in the morning just by not eating. If I do need to eat, I will. But if I don't have to, I really like to have my first meal in the day. So become aware of my thinking, my feelings, sensations, my emotions, get up, a little bit of work, some water, and then out the door into nature in some way, some form or another.
Hence the
Yeah.
beach trips. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think the beach has so many things going for it. I mean, it's that cold water therapy. So you get that dopamine hit, that clean, guilt-free dopamine hit. One of the things I love about it, and this is why you and I are here right now talking, is the community that we have, that sense of camaraderie. Like, we're up early, the sun hasn't risen, we got big grins on our faces.
We're the only crazy buggers out there right now. Yeah. There's some other nutters like us out there. We're not alone.
Yeah, and it brings us together in a really really clean, authentic, genuine way, and I think that's actually beautiful. Plus, on top of that, you have the energy of this massive thing, that actually connects every single piece of land on this planet and the oceans. So it's a huge energy thing, and I like to suck that energy up.
Yeah. Well, there's something about that too. I don't know a lot about it, but the negative ions in the sand, in the beach, in the ocean, that is meant to have a phenomenal effect. There's a fair bit of science behind it, but that's all I know.
So. Yeah, I believe actually a gentleman was talking to me about this morning, and what I like to do is on that theme is I'll rinse my feet when I leave the ocean, but I generally like to leave the salt residue on my skin.
Right.
And if I've got to go and do something, I'll have a shower, a quick one.
Yeah.
But I like to leave the minerals on me.
Yeah.
I think
there's something, definitely something. Actually, when I was a naturopath at college, I remember the lecturer saying the same sort of thing when you're in the sun. If you just don't have a shower straight away, the vitamin D takes about 15 minutes to get into your bloodstream after it's sat on the skin.
Okay.
So don't have a shower straight away after you've been in the sun. Like, give it a bit of half an hour or so.
Yeah,
so there's probably some similarities with the salt. And actually, that's funny. When I'm running down the beach, I always try and run on seaweed. I always try and step on seaweed.
Okay.
Just because I think there's a fair bit of iodine. Transfer. So
through the soles of the feet.
Yeah, through the soles of the feet, which I know actually absorb quite well, because I used to actually make a product which worked on the negative ions, actually, which is a detox patch that we'd put on. You've probably seen them around.
I have, yes.
Yeah, same sort of theory, and the soles of the feet absorb really, really well into the body. And
they do. Actually, that is one of my routines. I have a it's effectively a hairbrush, which I don't need, because I've got a shaven head under here. But it's got wooden bristles on it like that. And I actually use that to give my feet like a bit of a massage or a sensational sort of type thing, and the palms of the hand as well. And if you are paying attention to your body while you're doing that, the Chinese idea of the hand and the soles of the feet being pressure points for different parts of the body, you can actually physically feel the parts of the body that you are pressure pointing on the hands and feet. But you got to listen to your body.
There's got to be some awareness there, doesn't there?
Which I mean, the awareness topic in terms of energy for me, because there's various things that can affect your energy. It can be some bad news, some terrible news on the radio you're listening to, like a horrible story. Let's pick one of many that are going on in the world at the moment. It could be a situation at work. It could be an altercation driving, to and from. So for me, one of the things that I find really valuable as I roll through my day and as I move through these waves of conversation, interaction, experience, is to be aware of how those things are bouncing off me, how they're resonating with my energy, like how I'm feeling, So that awareness is very important for me personally. And there's a Buddhist concept of equanimity. So effectively, if something good happens, you're aware that, okay, that's good. I like that. But you don't become overly attached to it. And then consequently, if something you don't like happens, you can acknowledge that and you can be aware of how you feel as a result of that. But once again, you don't become attached to that negative feeling. You sort of like like you're just sitting on top of an ocean, and those experiences are coming along as waves, and you're just riding over the top. So you don't get hooked on feeling good, and you don't get, hooked on, being down on the bad things. So
that's interesting. Because that's that whole neutral sort of level, isn't it? You're going for the mid ground. And yeah, I understand that's the Buddhist way. Water finds the lowest points, and as everything sort of evens out. It's interesting though, because I've been really aware of testing that model out and trying to maintain that neutrality.
It's difficult.
It is very, very difficult, and it's I don't know if I'm doing it properly, but what I find happens is when I go through those really, really high events, when I'm just like, life is freaking awesome. And then I become aware and I go, I should probably pull this down a little bit, because what goes up must come down. And then I don't know, but lately I've just been really, really focusing on keeping a really high level. And it conflicts with that theory of neutrality and coasting, keeping in the middle. But everything I do in my day now, and I don't know how this is going to pan out. It's a total experiment.
Good.
But it's really, really interesting to see if I can hit that dopamine in that clean, positive way, and constantly do it throughout the day, and constantly build little wins and stay in the high. I'm finding the results are quite phenomenal, actually.
Good.
And it's in total conflict with what I've been told, about this steady coasting. Like, it's just, or maybe what it is, it's going from that neutral midline to making a new neutral midline, but that's a lot higher. And I've just found that high level of energy, and it's all about, that's what we're talking about today as well. Your energy is just off the charts. I mean, when I see you down the beach, it's like, you're just buzzing, man.
That's pre-coffee too, by the way.
What's that?
That's pre-coffee too, by the way.
In what way?
Well, when I see you,
pre-coffee.
That's pre-coffee. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, look, just adding some nuance to what you're saying, like acknowledging what you're saying there. And probably acknowledging that that's not different to what I was talking about. My approach would just be, if I'm riding that high wave through the day, I just want to be aware of it. Just aware of it. Yeah, this is where I'm at. Like, I'm sitting here right now, rather than going, I'm sitting here right now, but I've got to stay there. And if I don't, I'm going to get devastated, so rather than being in a neutral zone, just aware of where you're at.
Right.
Anywhere. High, low, the middle, moving in between the couple, just being aware of that natural process of your energy shifting and changing through the day based on your interactions. And if you've got tools in place, like you obviously have, and you can maintain that high, ride that wave, just be aware of it,
Right. So the awareness is, definitely.
Yeah. So for me, it's sort of like I've sort of, I mean, you need tools for this stuff, and for me personally, I use meditation as a setup for developing my awareness to how I think, feel. So feel physically, feel emotionally. And so for me, I call it the mind, body, breath awareness. Okay. Because your mind, body, and your breath will change depending on what you're experiencing. If you're angry, your heart rate goes up a little bit. Your breathing becomes a little bit shallower. Your temperature might rise. You might have a cortisol release. Okay. Same with a little bit of stress. If you're happy, you have a little feel good hormone, the feed and breed sort of parasympathetic, where you're sort of down and, So I use meditation as a guide for that. And now I've got to the stage where sometimes I'll almost watch myself. I'll watch the possibility, like you get to a fork in the road of an interaction, and I'll be aware that down this fork here is my previous response to this situation, to get righteous or be right or point out something. But then I'll realize that, well, hang on a sec, I don't have to go that way. And then there's this other path I can take. And I find that awareness then allows me to avoid the energy of that preconditioned negative path of responding to a situation, which is generally based on ego and desire, and go down that other one where I can still have effective communication, or I can engage with that situation in a way that maintains my energy in a genuine sort of authentic space, rather than being puppeted, by those emotions and situations. So for me, that's a grounder. The breath. What's it doing?
So how often are you meditating, and how long do you do it for?
Well, some weeks I call them a sit, like I will sit, which means a meditation session. Some weeks I may sit 4 times. Some weeks I may sit up to 10, and they're hour long. So yeah, I see the eyebrows. It's it takes a while to get to an hour. But when you get to an hour, that's when you can do the work. That's when you become aware of your mind will start wanting a whole range of stuff, or it'll stop not wanting a whole range of stuff. Like, I want this meditation to end. I've got other things I need to do.
Yeah.
So I say to people, and the people I've taught meditation to, we start with 6 minutes, and we do that every day for a week. And then the next week we go to 12 minutes, and we do that every day for a week. And then we add 6 minutes each week. And by the end of 10 weeks, 10 sixes, okay, people are sitting comfortably with an hour, and they build it up over slowly over a period of time, and that is a game changer for anybody. If you can find that hour, if you can find the self-care time for that. I'm big on the self-care.
Yes.
Yeah. I consider beach, diet, so diet's an interesting thing, actually, Nathan. So in terms of energy being affected by all our experiences, every single one of them, for me, the thinking is an important thing as well. So I sort of consider thinking as you would nutrition in a diet. Okay, so we know that if we eat highly processed foods full of fructose and sugar and plant fats, that we're going to feel bad. Okay, it's that, I know that. But if we eat a cleaner diet, more unprocessed foods, fresher, cleaner vegetables, you do feel physically better. And I find the same with thinking. If I feed myself a diet of negativity, with thinking, like I'm watching negative stuff all the time. I've got notifications set up for Donald Trump. I've got notifications set up for the Israel-Palestine conflict. I've got, and if I find if I'm feeding myself that stream of thinking, then obviously I'm at the mercy of that, So I'm very mindful of the diets that I feed myself in terms of
diet.
People, thoughts, environments, a whole range of things. Now, I've just got to have a caveat here. I'm talking about the ideal approach for me. I don't know where to tame this.
Of course.
Rarely do I, it's like if we took all of Andrew Huberman's protocols, you'd actually need 3 days.
You'd be a busy man. Yeah. Yeah. But that's awareness. That's the first step. And it's an ongoing process of refining, what goes into our brain. But how protective are you of the mental real estate that you're exposed to? Like,
very.
What's the conscious? Yeah. Tell us about that.
Very, very well. I suppose because I know how my patterns are from the past, and of course, once again, it's through crisis or suffering or or a failure or that we become face to face with these things that aren't working for us. Okay, so for me, and I know people find this hard to believe, and I've had people get offended at me. I don't do any news. Okay, so I can't remember the last time I read a newspaper or listened to the news on the radio or let alone watched it on a free-to-air television station.
Mate, so I'm the same. I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome. Absolutely.
And how do you, I mean, obviously, and even my brother, he's at stage now where he's developing his meditation practice. He's becoming aware of these things that make him feel, think and behave in a particular way, but the old patterns are still there, and he gets dragged back into them. And then he knows, he's even going, I'm feeling this way. And he knows it's because of that,
Yeah.
So I tell him,
Sorry, mate. Go on.
No, you go.
Yeah.
No, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I was watching something the other day, and they were analyzing all the stats on the bad news. You know, how many events are portrayed on news and social media of all the negative stuff. And this guy was saying, do you think there's more bad stuff now than there was, say, 50 years ago happening?
Okay.
And the interviewer was saying, well, yeah, obviously, you know, the world's turned to crap and everyone's stressed out and there's so many more bad things happening. He said, factually, no. Actually, no, that's not the case. There's less deaths despite the wars. There's less disease despite everything else. There's less bad things happening. But it's really interesting because the mainstream media are just losing traction. So they're losing viewers. Social media is growing. So everyone's reporting through social media. Everyone's moved away from the TV channels. And so the sensationalism to get you captured has to elevate, you know, time after time to grab people. So you think the world's just gone to crap. You know, if you followed all the news and things, but it's quite interesting. It's actually the opposite. And they're just going more insane trying to capture the viewers. So
I agree. They attention is a physical phenomena. I mean, you can make money out of people's attention.
Sure.
You know, but I mean, as you and I appreciate, due to our regimes, our protocols, if you get up in the morning and we live in Perth, I mean, I live in Scarborough. I'm looking past the computer out my window. It runs down the valley. It's beautiful treed. We can go to the beach. I mean, generally, all I see around me is, you know, is good.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of good people, a lot of love, a lot of care. But once again, like the diet of thoughts, you need to look at your diet of the people. I heard a scary statistic. Now, I'm not sure of the validity of this thing, but it got me thinking about it anyway. This guy was saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around.
Yep.
And I just went, wow. And if I go back and I look at different phases in my life and I think about who those 5 people were and where I was at and what I was doing, it is really, really important to be engineering, you know, the people you're around, the conversations you have, the communications, you know. So I'm with you, Nathan. I think I wouldn't want to live in the Middle Ages. I can forgo a plague. I can go without a plague. Yeah, I can do that. I don't want to do the Crusades. I don't want to be a samurai warrior. I'm quite happy being 56, entitled, living in Perth.
Beautiful.
And giving back a little bit when I can.
Awesome. I mean, we've got these choices. We can all make these choices, right? So you can start your day, as you're saying, you can start your day with positivity, with dopamine, with surrounding awesome people, and set yourself up for success for the rest of the day. Or you can turn the bloody radio on and the TV on and go the other way. So,
correct.
And you and I both avoid news, which is, you know, people go, what? Are you serious? You don't listen to the news? What's wrong with you? And I don't drink alcohol, and they say, what? You're Australian and you don't drink alcohol?
Me either.
I'll tell you.
No, bro. It's one of those things, man. I mean, it's awesome. A toxin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you and me, mate. Actually, I don't know if there's actually any viewers out there. You should put in the notes if we're not the only ones on the planet that don't drink alcohol, and particularly Australians, because they look at you, especially when you're overseas, and you go, have beer, and I'll go, oh, no thanks, mate. They go, what? What's wrong with you? You know, you're the only Australian out there that doesn't, and I think, probably I am, but okay, there's 2 of us.
Yeah, no, it's good, man. It's good. I have drunk alcohol in the past.
Yeah, same.
But through this process of becoming mind, body, breath aware, it was a no-brainer for me that alcohol is not part of where I want to be, the life I want to live. You know, it's just in terms of, and as we get older, what a human was recommending. We're plugging him today. We should be getting 5% or something. But he's one of his first podcasts ever was actually on alcohol. and he recommends no more than 4 standard drinks a day. I believe Canada has recently said no more than 2 standard drinks. I believe America's sitting at like 10.
Well, America in the sugar department, I mean, alcohol is obviously just converted to sugar, but in Australia, we're eating about 13 or 14 teaspoons a day. I think I was telling you this the other day down the beach of sugar. Yeah. So that's a fair bit. You go across to the States and it's around 34 teaspoons a day that the average consumption of sugar is. And then you add the alcohol of 10 standard drinks a day, man, how would you even function on that?
I
mean, I'd be unconscious on that amount. But you add the sugar, you add the alcohol, you add all that refined processed sugars and flours and everything else, the fructose, as you mentioned, and you've got a disease-ridden diet. I mean,
you're struggling.
There's no chance that you can perform at your best. There's no chance if that's going on.
Well, especially with the refined carbs in the form of sugar. So I mean, like, what's a standard definition for a drug? A white crystalline powder. I mean, sugar. So I consider giving children sugar criminal. I mean, let's be honest. And let's look at how it affects you in terms of raises you up, hypes kids up, then drops them down. So my wife is a primary school teacher, and they're very aware. And they will offer advice to parents who are sending their children, food that's not appropriate for them to be able to focus properly throughout the day. Yeah, it's strange what we do. I mean, I fortunately, because I work in a range of different jobs and I'm not on the clock, like 9 to 5, I can make chicken broths out of 50 chicken frames from Creative Meats and Herdsman Fresh. I'll give those boys a plug. And I make tomato sauces. So pretty much I do all the cooking in my house, and it's as unprocessed as I can make it. Like I gotta try and buy things that aren't wrapped up, like a whole cabbage, a whole lettuce, items. I mean, I eat a little bit of pasta, but my wife is a type 1 diabetic. So I think dinner last night was, I had lettuce, which I dressed, I had cucumber, and I had chicken. So no carbs, because I sort of go out in sympathy with my wife. She tries to have a low to no carb approach because that means she limits the insulin,
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're all eating way too many carbs.
Bro, we eat way too much. I mean, I remember being 21 years of age, and I went to West Africa for 6 weeks. Now, I'm not sure why I did that. I think I was living in Berlin at the time, and it was the cheapest airfare out of Berlin and back. And I was totally out of my depth, totally out of my league. But I remember getting caught in a town at the end of Ramadan, and these guys were like, they were bigger than me. They had like, an extra 15 kilos of lean muscle mass on their bodies. These guys were specimens, and they would literally eat under half the amount of food that I would. And I'm looking at these guys going, why am I eating? Why, and these guys weren't tired. They weren't lean. They weren't under muscled. And that was actually a turning point for me in looking at, the amount of food that I eat. And you talked about meditation before. I've done a couple of 10-day meditation retreats where they feed you a breakfast and a lunch, and that's it. You eat again. So you have lunch at 12 o'clock and you eat again the following morning at 6:30. So it's 16 and a half hours between meals. And it's an interesting thing, Nathan. Put yourself in these situations where your fundamental behaviors are highlighted, and you can look at them and compare them outside of your normal environment. So a 10-day meditation retreat where you effectively take the vows of a monk is really interesting. And one of the valuable things I learned, Nathan, was that I would sit down, and when you can't talk and you're doing 10 and a half hours of meditation a day, you're not reading, and there's no phone, you're not writing, okay, you're not exercising, you're not going to the beach, you're not having little, dopamine hits to, satisfy your desires. When you sit down to those 2 meals, that's the shit, right?
How good would that be?
You're so happy.
Yeah.
What I found myself doing was I'd get a spoonful of food, I would throw it in my mouth, and then I would just start chewing away mindlessly. And then my mind would go straight to the hand and the spoon, and I'd pull that next load up, and I'm not thinking about this anymore. I want that. It was so hard for me, Nathan, to have a mouthful of food, put the fork down, sit back in my chair, mindfully chew my food, and then pick up the fork and go again. I challenge everybody, eat a meal like that today and get back to me in the notes and tell me how challenging that is.
100%.
And just watch your mind and how it works with food. So, yeah.
You're right on, man, because we just eat unconsciously. Like there's no conscious process at all.
At all.
Yeah. And it's really interesting asking the right questions, because I think we just go through life mostly on autopilot in everything we do, right?
Agreed.
And you just shovel and you shovel and you shovel, and we ignore satiety. We ignore when we get to the point of like, I'm full. No, I'll just, if it's on the plate, we just keep going until it's all gone.
Yeah, correct.
And it's amazing. There's so many habits that we do in life like this that have no rhyme or reason. It's just a autopilot play out, isn't it?
Cultural norms.
Yeah, culturally as well.
Cultural norms. I mean, for example, imagine trying to sell a mortgage to someone. Listen, young man, you're going to get a mortgage, and for the rest of your life, you're going to go to work at a job you hate just to pay for it. And then later on, you're going to get divorced and you're going to give half that away. I mean, this is a lot of people's lives. So I think you're on the money there. Some people just roller coaster through without questioning anything. Yeah. And I think that's easy when you're not aware. When you don't know why you do this, why you eat this, why you hang out with these people, why you like that, what's motivating you, what's driving you, what aspect of this, is important to you for it to be such a heavy part of your life. I find that I say a couple of things I say as a check to see where I'm at in my life is what have I stopped doing recently, like for the first time? So what have I dropped? What have I stopped in my life? And then what have I started, which is brand new? Okay, so those two things. So what am I leaving behind? And what am I picking up? Okay, and I find for me that keeps me aware of, okay, is that nurturing me? Is that an environment, that person, that relationship, that career, those activities, are they nurturing me? When I finish those things, how do I feel? Do I feel light, energized, happy, or do I feel sluggish, hurt? So yeah, for me, I'm always asking. Asking. It's a funny thing because as a boxing coach for 20 years, and people would always say to me, "Oh, I want to lose weight," and my response is, "I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I can't actually help you lose weight." But what I do offer is a means for these people to assess their own consumption. So all I ask them is for the next week, I ask them to record in detail everything that goes in here.
Awareness.
Every food, every liquid. And then what I say to them, on top of that, I want you to make a note of how you feel before, during, and after those experiences. Yeah. And then, because nutrition and the science around nutrition there's so many variables involved in it. There's agendas, there's money, there's personal bias, there's cultural bias, there's, ignorance, there's poor study method, there's, double blind stuff that doesn't work. I like to give people the tools for assessing these things themselves. You work out what feels good for you. I mean, the carnivores, you can't eat vegetables, they're poisonous. Well, I find sometimes when I'm feeling a bit flat, a feed of fresh leafy greens, spinach, and that would just pick me up. Yeah. And look, if I ate that every day for the next 10 years, I'd probably die. But, I think you can tell. I mean, like for me, when I eat food, how do I feel? Like, do I feel energized? Yeah.
Just that awareness. It's so key, and people miss it.
Your body will tell you.
Yeah.
It knows way more than we do.
Way more. And it doesn't matter about the science. Everyone's individual. So that awareness is the number one priority. But again, people just go through on autopilot without any sort of awareness. What about debriefing? Because you sort of touched on that. It's something that I'm really passionate about. Is after the event, is whatever's happened, business wise or family or whatever, is debriefing and rehashing what's just happened. What are your thoughts on? Do you do that sort of process to assess?
All the time, yeah. And I think what works for me is relationships with people that value that process as well. So I have a set of young men that I have mentored in an unofficial capacity over the years, and that process is catching up like we do at the beach. I mean, I think the other day when you saw me was yesterday. I was down the beach with one of my young boxers.
Yep.
So
you're training him or something, were you?
Look, I'm not his main coach.
Right.
That meeting yesterday was sort of more of a, mental checkup, attitude about training and that. And I actually had a speech prepared for that young guy because he went into a fight on the weekend undercooked. And then in the water, he started telling me his understanding of that process. So I didn't even have to go through my speech. Right. All I did was acknowledge the value of him acknowledging that himself. Okay. And then from then we worked on that, So that debrief, and like sometimes these young guys are like, oh, look, Kneebone, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It's like, I appreciate you as well, because it's a two-way street. Yeah. Like sometimes when I'm debriefing or breaking down or talking about an experience with someone else who's actually listening, like actually really listening, like they're present in that moment. They're not thinking about what they're going to say to me. My own wisdom comes to me in that process, like being with that person. The wisdom will come.
The energy starts flowing, and then totally. the right words just come out, don't they?
Yeah. And look, if I can just go back before we move on, we talked about the wisdom of the body, how if you listen to the body, it'll tell you what you should be eating. It's like I say to people, you think about it, when you actually cut your arm, you don't have to concentrate on the cells regrowing and the veins doing their thing and the skin coming over a cell at a time. Your body knows how to grow that back. That's a really, really awesome thing. Your body can do that on its own. And it can do a whole range of other things on its own if we can step back and just listen. And that's where the meditation is a really, really handy thing, put the ego aside for a little bit, put the analytical mind aside for a little bit, and just observe, what's going on. Be there.
Definitely powerful stuff, isn't it?
We're fortunate, Nathan.
Yeah, well, it's all available to us, isn't it? So
we're pretty lucky. I mean, like you look where we live. We've got our health. We're still frothing on stuff. Like I still feel like a teenager.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you act like one too, certainly down the beach.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's great to be in that zone. But we choose that, right? I mean, we could choose whatever we wanted. We could choose grumpiness. We could choose.
And I have in the past.
Yeah, we all have. We've all been there. So, making the right choice. I mean, I've got a family member who I love dearly, but she's always attracting all this negativity to her, and she's in business and just one bad thing after the next, and it's like, come on, you got to change your energy here. We got to focus on the positive stuff and get more of that flowing into your life. And we have the options. We just have to change our, don't listen to the news. The good thing is your friends around you are going to tell you anything that's important.
They do.
And they'll give you the highlights only. They won't go through all the boring stuff. They'll just tell you what you need to know. It's great. Thank you. Now I don't have to go through the negativity. You've given me a 5 minutes overview, and let's move on and stay in the positive, right?
Do you can I ask whether you give the family member you care about any advice, or do you just sort of, how do you roll with that?
Massive coaching. In a loving way.
And are they accepting of that coaching?
They are, but it's slow. It's a slow process. Yeah. So
it's funny. It's funny you mention that, because I've had to really tone that back. Because it's like when people they got it. They develop some tools and they start working and they start seeing some real positive change in their lives. And I found for me early on, I was getting a little bit evangelistic. It's like, yeah, I've got what's good for you. You come here. You're gonna take this information whether you want it or not.
Right.
And as
shove it down their throat, right?
As you know, it's very ineffective.
Yes.
So I've been trying to do the old show not tell.
Yeah, spot on, man.
So so just sort of look, keep the change focused here, so I can be in that a good place if someone does ask. So
true. Actually, another family member he's a real foodie, like phenomenal foodie. He's just all about the food. That's everything in his life. And he actually got diagnosed with cancer, stage 4 terminal.
I'm sorry.
And so but the interesting thing was with naturopath background and really focused on keto in particular, run a keto program in Indonesia in hotels doing weight loss and all sorts of things. So really, really involved in the keto space. So I said to him, look, let's do keto and chemo together. So we did it both. Okay. So we didn't ignore the traditional way, but we did keto. We went in there and but to change him, it wasn't about, because I knew there'd be massive pushback if I'm saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this.
Yeah, okay.
So 5 years ago, I went into ketosis, and I've been in ketosis for 5 years.
Well done.
So
not easy.
No, well, it's all mindset. So I check my ketones every morning with this little keto, through breath analyzer.
Gotcha.
But I did it initially to to show the way without pushing it down his throat. As you rightly said, it's not the way to go. So I thought show rather than tell. And look, end of the big picture is that he's now actually completely clear and has had a really, really awesome recovery. He goes back onto eating as a foodie does, whatever they want, but he's got way more awareness and he's reined it right back in. So not quite to the level that I would have wanted and that I was probably wanting to shove down his throat, but nonetheless, so it kind of
cool,
for whatever reason it seems to have worked. But nice to.
And how's your relationship with him as a result of going through the process together?
Awesome. We're pretty close. So
no, that's good. That's those nurturing relationships. If you can, if you're fortunate enough to be able to develop them, and they're beautiful things. And I hang on to those with with both hands, and I give them the gratitude and the and the status they deserve in my life. I really value the people around me that I have those relationships with, because like that young lad you met the other day, he's sort of like, oh, this is cool. I really enjoyed that session. He goes, like I want to learn this off and I want to learn this. And I said, yeah, well, cool. I said, thank you very much. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, because I will move, I'll forget some of this stuff and then you'll reteach it to me. And and I may show you, and then you may go, oh, okay. But then what if we go with this way? And then I get that back later on. So I'm, I sort of see it like a baton, in the 400-meter relay race. Here's a little bit of my wisdom, and I pass that on. And then when we come back around, I take it again.
Yeah, awesome. So you've sort of combined. You've got mindset. You've got qigong. You do a bit of qigong, don't you?
Oh, lots of qigong, yoga, stretching, mobility work. All stuff that is awareness of the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So so it's, for me, like I said, mind, body, breath, awareness. Yeah. So the meditation, the diet, the little rituals like the beach. I'm mindful of it most of the time. I do this. This is what I do. Like, this is working for me. Like, like I feel as though I'm fortunate to get to a stage now where I know what works for me, and it shows in the relationships I have, and it allows me every now and again to actually give something back for this incredibly, valuable life that I have, So yeah, it's I'm in.
Good on you, mate. 100%. Yeah. So I mean, you bring it all together: the mindset, the nutrition, the diet, the exercise. That's a great little package. And you do a lot in the boxing world, right? You do a lot of coaching for boxers
Yep.
and fitness. You're 56, and
I am correct. Yes.
yeah, probably one of the fittest guys I've seen at any age, really.
I do all right.
Yeah. How often are you exercising? How often are you doing that these days?
I probably do something every day. So aside from the coaching, and some of the sit-down construction stuff I do, like estimating or consulting, I actually do on the tools physical labor,
Right.
which I really enjoy as a mindfulness exercise where you can just be in that process of doing something. So I've done 5 construction labor days in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay. So on top of that, I might throw in a swim 2 or 3 times a week, 4 sometimes. I might put in a couple of boxing sessions. Look, at my age, Nathan, I don't like to throw too many punches anymore because there's a lot of wear and tear associated with that.
Yeah.
Especially when you hit like an absolute steam train. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's me I'm joking. But yeah, so I like to have a really nice mix. Like to get sore every now and again. But I think as an older guy, a lot of my stuff is focused on awareness, recovery, mobility, and those sorts of things, like taking a joint, a shoulder, a hip, a knee, an ankle, taking them through a whole range of mobility and strengthening stuff. And you've seen the Qigong. That was a tendon and ligament set we were doing yesterday.
Yep.
You cool. Graciously gave me a name for one of them, the cross-country skier or the skier.
Yeah.
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 That was good.
Yeah.
So,
that was some good stuff there.
Yeah. Well, that's very different to what we normally do in our Western approach to exercise, which is generally like, you're pushing something or you're pulling or lifting, you're strenuously training, or you're running laps and, your cardio's up and that. That's halfway between a meditation and some exercise, that stuff. But working valuable tendon and ligament as well as some muscle, So we don't get a lot as we age. We don't get as much flow through our tendons and ligaments as we do when we're young. So there's a couple of things you can do as you get older. You can increase your muscle mass a little bit. The bigger the muscle, the more blood that will put through those tendons and ligaments, and the more you do joint mobility, you'll get a lot more flow through them. And that's what breaks down as you get older. Muscles build easily, but the tendons and ligaments need a little bit more. You got to treat them like a 2-year-old. You got to nurture those little babies. The papa.
They need more circulation, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. Awesome. So, for people that want more of Jason Kneebone, how do they get in touch with you, buddy?
Well, I feel sorry for them. Yeah. Look, I don't actually have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, or anything. I have an email address, a phone number, which I'll leave with you. You can put that down in your notes. If anybody wants to catch up, there's various places you could join me. You could join me in a group boxing session at a gym, or we could, talk about doing some one-on-one stuff, or maybe catch up with Nathan for a swim. Come and join.
Actually, I know one of the guys, one of the influencers in Canada. He just meets with anyone who wants to meet with him, and they have to come down to the beach, or they have to climb the mountain with him every day.
Yeah.
He does that.
That's awesome.
Maybe.
Yeah, and he just does that, does he?
Yeah, so he it's an open invitation for anyone around the world, and he's worth 100 million, and he's absolutely smashing it. And so they have to come. They have to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and join him for a hike up the mountain, and they can talk about anything they want with him.
That's great.
So that's cool. Yeah, maybe we need to start that, mate. We'll
why not? Well, I sort of almost have that going anyway. Like if guys want to see me, it's like, let's go 6:30 beach.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Get something out of it.
Excellent.
Hey, how you feeling now?
Oh, awesome, man.
You look good.
Yeah, you.
Oh, man, I'm feeling really good. But I'm sitting with it. You know what I mean? Like I'm feeling how I feel right now, and I'm appreciating it. You know.
Awesome.
And but it's already started to change though.
The attitude of gratitude, eh?
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, lovely. All right.
Attitude of gratitude. Well, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, Guru Jason Kneebone. Thank you, buddy. Been really, really cool. I think we're so connected with everything we're saying there. We're on all those levels of mind, body, nutrition. It's the whole package, right? It's
correct.
We're a whole package. Our bodies are a whole package. I mean, that's why we can't isolate bits in treatment. We got to look at the whole package because it's all connected. The blood flows through it all. It brings it all together. Right. But thanks for being the whole package, Jason.
You're a gentleman. I'll see you sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. We'll see you down the beach, buddy. Thanks for your time. That was awesome.
Thanks, Nathan. Catch up.
Cheers.
That was awesome. Keep optimizing your health, mindset, and business. Be awesome and make business awesome.